The rain poured and Pastor Rad was disappointed. After he had traveled for miles to visit his fellow believers in this village, thunderclouds rolled in. Everywhere the ground was turning to mud. The worship service was about to start, but around the tree this congregation meets under, it started to flood. There was nothing Pastor Rad could do. He had to cancel the meeting. All the believers were disappointed that they were unable to worship together. He prayed with his brothers and sisters, encouraging them. One of the village men sighed. "If only one of our houses was big enough," he said, "then we could have had the meeting." But Pastor Rad said his goodbyes and began the wet 10-mile journey back home. Home for Pastor Rad is a 2-room rented house. While his work provides for his family, he lives his life to fulfill the Great Commission found in Matthew 28, to go, therefore, and make disciples of all nations. Zechariah 4 says, "Do not despise these small beginnings." And this is how Pastor Rad's call began, on the ground crying out to God. He spent months praying and fasting for this ministry. His efforts seemed fruitless. Frustrated, he began to lose hope. His heart ached for the people in the villages nearby. He prayed fervently for the impoverished day laborers. Women, desperate to survive, are forced to work tirelessly doing menial jobs such as scooping sand. What may take several minutes for a front loader to shovel was taking these women hours of backbreaking work. These men and women wear themselves out every day to provide for their families. Men work for merely 50 rupees a day, which is the equivalent of only $1. Women receive half of that, even though they do the same work. Finally, after months of praying for these desperate villagers, there was a major breakthrough. Pastor Rad prayed earnestly for a sick man, and after 3 days of prayer, this man was healed. Pastor Rad's prayers were answered. Many lives were touched because of this man's testimony. Pastor Rad continued to pour out his heart, sharing the gospel from village to village. God changed the lives of many villagers. Through Pastor Rad's faithful prayers, there are now 10 mission stations in this region. The sun shone and Pastor Rad was encouraged. Today, after traveling back to visit his fellow believers in this village, the weather was perfect. Music began to cover the village as they worshiped their dear Father. All around, the town began to listen. Church had started, and around the tree the congregation meets under, God was with them. The believers gave everything of themselves to the Lord, spending genuinely sweet time as they worshiped and learned more about Him. The love of Jesus Christ poured out of Pastor Rad. God's love warmed all their hearts as the sun warmed their backs. So what will next week be like? Will the sun be shining then? These believers don't just need a cover over their heads. They need a place to call home, a foundation for their lives. These men and women are first-generation believers. They need leaders to encourage them and to help them grow in the Lord. Pastor Rad is the only leader in this area of over 350,000 people. Many of these people have never heard of Jesus' name. These villages desperately need prayer. Who will send out laborers into the harvest? Who will fund their churches? Who will pray for those who are still waiting to hear? Will you?